What's up everyone? Today we're going to talk about 5 myths about programming and how they differ from reality. Along with that, I'll give you some tips and tricks for how to succeed as a software engineer. If you're excited for that, go ahead and smash the like button and let's get into it. The first myth is that you need to be good at math to be good at programming. I'm living proof that you don't have to be good at math. I'm a staff software engineer, and when I was in college, I failed Algebra 101 like 3 times. I failed or almost failed geometry, I think once. I had to do business calculus basically. I think I probably could have got the math, but just the drive and determination wasn't there to really be good at math. Math just is not something that I enjoy doing. So if you think you need to be good at math or even enjoy math to be good at programming, you don't. With that said, I do think it is good to be a logical thinker if you want to get into programming. So you should be pretty good at solving things like logic puzzles. Let's say there are 2 ducks in front of a duck, along with 2 ducks behind a duck, and a duck in the middle. How many ducks are there? If you answered 3, congratulations, you're correct. Those are the sorts of things that you'll most likely encounter as a programmer. You're not so much going to be looking at like creating math proofs or solving really difficult linear algebra. That certainly can come in handy at times, but in almost a decade doing this professionally, I've never encountered a situation where I needed to be really good and really adept at math. Another thing to point out is when I was in college, I was really good at discrete math. That was something that just clicked pretty instantly for me. And I'm not saying that if you're bad at discrete math, you're going to be a bad programmer, but in my personal experience, it seems like being good at discrete math and having the aptitude to be a programmer seem to go hand in hand. Also, not everyone that is good at math is good at programming. I do think that programming and math do show up on a Venn diagram together, and there is an intersection, but it's not like people that are good at math are just instantly good at programming. So another thing to keep in mind, if you're good at math, you might be good at programming, you might not be. Try it out though and see if you like it. The next myth that I've encountered is that you don't talk to anyone as a programmer. In fact, if you're a social butterfly, you are going to absolutely hate being a programmer. And that couldn't be more wrong. Programming is a very social job. It's something where you are reaching out to coworkers, asking them for help. They're reaching out to you, asking you for help. You are talking with business stakeholders to figure out how are you going to build the thing that they want you to build. Yes, it is true that at the beginning of your career, you don't have to be that social. You can kind of get by with just taking orders from the senior engineer on the team or your engineering manager. But as you progress up the ladder, you need to become more of a social butterfly. You need to be more willing to talk with people. Otherwise, at a certain point, usually around like senior engineer, you're not going to be getting promoted anymore if you're not comfortable with talking to people. Another myth is that programming will make you rich. There are some channels out there on YouTube that talk about how much people make. I don't know who they are, but they exist. And yes, you can make a lot of money as a programmer. I know folks that are working in high frequency trading, making nearly $1 million a year. And I know folks that are working just general development jobs at an ad agency, making maybe about $100,000 a year, maybe less. So the range is really wide and it really depends on what kind of work you are doing. I would say in most cases, the high earning software engineers are not so much more talented than others, but they just were in the right place at the right time. So if you join a company when the stock is really low and then the company increases in value exponentially over the course of 5 years and you're being granted RSUs, you can easily go from earning like $150,000 a year to $500,000 to $1 million a year, mostly from selling that equity. The one area where I'd say that that's not the case though, where like talent plays a pretty big part, is really with the high frequency trading, because you're essentially getting paid cash and they're not going to pay you cash if you're not doing a good job. Quants are a completely different thing. If you want me to make a video about that, leave a comment down below. Outside of really crazy high salaries that only a very small amount of engineers get, the ones that are making a lot of money are mostly making that through those RSUs. You could have a situation where you're granted a bunch of RSUs and then we enter a bear market and those RSUs are not worth as much anymore. So you're effectively taking a pay cut. Like if you look at the delta between what a software engineer at Google makes in base salary and what a software engineer at a scrappy startup makes, the delta probably isn't that big. Where it really starts to show a difference is with their bonuses along with those RSUs. So as a software engineer, you aren't guaranteed to be filthy rich. You'll make enough money to live a comfortable life no matter what you're doing as a software engineer, but it might take you a little bit of time to buy that house or to buy that Lambo. Moving on to the next myth, it is that you have to be a genius to write code. And this one isn't too hard to know where it comes from if you look at people like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, although maybe not Elon Musk anymore, Bill Gates, and others. They're all these people that were geniuses that invented these brand new companies that took off and just went straight to the moon. In reality though, building a search engine, building an e-commerce store, building a social network, those things don't take that much effort to build the initial versions of, especially these days. But even back in the day, it wasn't that complicated to build those, especially because there weren't as many users going onto those websites. Like today, if you wanted to go off and build the next Facebook, you could go off and build the next Facebook in probably a month. You may not get any users, but you could essentially build what Facebook had in the early days in a month. You don't have to be a genius for that. And in fact, looking at all of those companies today, so the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons of the world, none of those products are built by a singular person. Those are all built by really large teams nowadays. Those teams, like they might have some folks that are better programmers than others, but I would be surprised if they had an Albert Einstein on every single team. So really, you don't have to be a genius to become a programmer. You just have to be good at programming and, social stuff. And then actually there's one other thing that you want to be good at. This myth is that programmers don't need to be good at writing just because people assume they have to be good at math. So of course, if you're good at math, you don't have to be good at writing. Couldn't be further from the truth though. You really need to be good at writing. And I think if you aren't good at that, it's going to really hold you back a lot, similar to if you don't want to talk to people. Where this comes in handy is if you are stuck on a problem and you need to ask a question on Stack Overflow, even though that website is toxic and horrible, the best way you can get your question answered is by being really thorough with the question that you're writing, leaving very little room for ambiguity, while also not writing too much text where people just look at it and their eyes gloss over and they don't read. That's one area where writing is going to help you as a programmer. Another area is with Slack. You are going to be talking to your coworkers either on Slack or Teams or HipChat, if that still gets used these days. But you're going to be talking in that way, and you want to make sure that you're able to convey emotion in text as well as you can. You also want to make sure that what you're saying is, again, clear and concise, and people know what you are asking of them so they're not confused when they're reading your message. Pull requests and commit messages, that's something I could do an entire video on, probably will, but the gist of it is you want to provide context in both your PRs and your commit messages. You don't want to just leave like one or two words in a commit that you're not going to know what it was for. You want to be pretty clear with what's going on and describing what's happening. And then RFCs is another one, request for comments, basically just getting your idea out there and then having folks comment on that asynchronously. It's something that a lot of open source communities do, something that larger companies will do, but you want to make sure that you can describe your idea pretty clearly, pretty thoroughly. You want to make sure that you're able to engage with comments that are being left. And again, overall, just want to be able to be a good writer. You don't have to be great at writing getting into programming, but if you want to do it for any length of time, you're going to have to be good at writing. And I know I said this was only going to be 5 myths, but today I'm going to give you a bonus myth. So myth number 6 is that programmers won't have jobs soon. This is something that I see all the time. The job market, yes, it can be difficult, especially if you are just getting into programming, but people that are getting laid off, they're finding jobs. There are still more jobs than there are job seekers out there. Programmers are not going to be out of a job anytime soon. However, I did make a video predicting when AI would replace programmers. I think I did it down to the exact day and year. So if you want to see that, check out this video next. And that's it. That's the video.